Okay, so my iPad has iPadOS 13, and I just found a really great use for it. And it was because I had a question on, this is the YouTube app, and you can see here someone's asked me about two different TVs to see what the differences are. So I fired it up, as I normally do, on a web browser, and then there is no compare option on the Samsung website like there is on other sites, and I'd usually put them side by side and have a look. But what you can do, as you can see here, is run two side by side at the same time. So what it enabled me to do was to tap on specs on both of them at the same time, and then go down, and I could flick through and I could see what the differences were. And this wouldn't have been as easy. I'd have probably used two devices because it's not as easy as flicking from one page to another. So what a great use for it. And you can move it around, so you can make one smaller or one larger, and you can basically split it in the middle as well. And if I drag this, I can make it into a slide over window, and then back into that split screen. Okay, so the way to enable the split screen, so the way I did the comparison, is to drag up from the bottom, so you get your taskbar, and then tap on Safari and hold, and then drag it across. And you can see here that it actually comes up with the last page that it was on as well, which is quite useful. And you can also open multiple tabs in that as well. So I could open a Hot UK Deals tab, I can go back. I mean, this is great. But also it's going to be really good for notes as well, because obviously you can hover the Notes app over it, and use that as well. The other thing I found that was really great is up until now on my iPad, the only way I could add end screens to a YouTube video was to use, I think it was the Puffin web browser, and the Puffin web browser is getting officially discontinued now, and I guess it's because you now have a full web browser. There you go. So unfortunately it's disappearing, but this was a way. It was very slow to do the sort of, well, I thought it was Flash that it was doing it on. Obviously the Safari browser isn't Flash, but it's using some other technology that wasn't in a mobile browser. But if I go into YouTube Studio Beta, and if I want to add an end screen, well, actually it doesn't seem to work on this mode, but if I go into, if I exit, skip that, and I go back into the classic mode, if I want to pick a video and hit edit, I can go at the top and you can see it's got end screen, and then I can use a template. I can pick a template, and then I can choose a video to go in that. So if I want, say, that Apple Arcade video, and then pick another one. Oh, wrong box. Pick another one. So let's go for the other. There's another Apple Arcade. Go for that one. And then I can save those changes. And this is something I've not been able to do on my iPad apart from using Puffin browser, but I usually used my Mac just because the Puffin browser was so slow doing that particular task. It was alright on other things. So if I hit preview now, you can see a preview and I can see how it's going to work. So all of that is new. I wanted to also check how it would show big web pages compared to web pages on my older iPad. So I'll screenshot the two together and see what the differences are between it reporting itself as a full web browser as opposed to a mobile web browser. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so I don't know how I'm going to show this on my screens, but I'm showing both devices at the moment. So I've got my iPad Pro 10.5, and I've also got my iPad Mini, and I'll label them effectively. The iPad Mini is a second gen, so it's an old device, and it's running iOS 12.4 because it's jailbroken, but also it doesn't support iOS 13, so it's not going to get iPadOS. But what you can see here from this first page is that on the right hand side there are a few things that have pictures, and you can see that as I flick through them, whoa, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. What you can see here is there are pictures on the right hand side, and a few of the things are slightly better spaced out, but mostly it's pretty much the same on this, so you're seeing the same sort of information. So let's go to the Curry's PC World site, and you'll see on here, obviously my because I've got less RAM on my iPad mini, it takes longer. But you can see it's actually a very different website. So the bottom one is showing the one obviously intended for iPad. The top one is showing the one that you use from a web browser. So what you can see is along the top line, it's much more spaced out. It looks much better, but it's also got all the categories listed. Whereas on the other iPad, on the mini, I've got a little hamburger menu, which is certainly not as nice to use on a bigger screen, and so it's a bit better spaced out. It certainly looks better, but even just those lines make it nicer to use. It's better formatted. So I also did a Google search. Oh, this is just the Google page, and you'll see at the top there's Gmail and images. And on the left-hand side, again, you've got a hamburger menu and just a slightly different layout and things like privacy, terms and settings, advertising, business. There's a few things on there. Obviously, doesn't change the functionality much of that page. But let's move on to Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is a great one for this because on the left-hand side, I've got loads and loads of options. And also, welcome to Wikipedia. There's a few more bits in there. There's separate headings and things like that. This is a really good example of how the iPadOS 13 is much better for how much information it gives you on screen. No hamburger menus like there are on the iPad mini, which is really nice to see. So let's go to the New York Times. Well, not the New York Times actually. Let's go to the search on Google for New York Times, and you can see on the right hand side I've got more information. And also everything's better spaced out. So and you've got little icons next to the symbols and things like that. Just a better layout altogether, and a lot more information on the screen. Bing does something similar. So you see I've got like suggestions along the bottom. I've got the all images, videos, maps, news, options, sign in page there. I don't know how you sign in on this one, but you probably have to press that bottom arrow or something to look for it. But again, more information on that desktop environment. Okay, so Yahoo, you can see that it's much better spread out, although we do have a big advert at the top. We can close the advert though. Oh, there you go. So that's probably a better comparison, and you can see there's so much more information. I've got the weather, I've got trending information. So things that probably aren't even on this page. Yeah, they're not even on this page. So you're missing out on a mobile browser, on a desktop browser. That's a great example of how much better that is. It's weird because doing this test, I've noticed that not everything does improve it. You can see Booking.com, completely different layout, and just looks a lot nicer, looks a lot better spread out. Although it's a totally different starting screen, but obviously that's how they've done mobile. The bottom one is obviously designed for smaller screens. Okay, so for me it was an interesting test. Some of the websites are much better. Obviously, if you only do it on one device, you never notice these things really. But yeah, there are a lot of websites that look pretty much the same. But in my short test, I found quite a few websites which were definitely helped by having that desktop environment. Okay, hope this helps. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.